we're just going to really quickly cover the Lions.
The Lions.
I know everybody cares. We don't.
We don't really
Not
know.
at all. No.
Yeah, I've been trying to be a bit more engaged with it, because certainly just in our discussions of it, so this slightly wry smile we have going like, well, what's your hope for the Lions tour? Well, I kind of hope Johnny Sexton and the boys do really well in Japan, where they're playing in Ireland, and you can have your British and Welsh line. It's Warren Gatland, man. Warren Gatland. And it's not just like Irish people are getting a bad rep for disliking Warren, and because he seems to be like all this sour grapes over the Brian O'Driscoll fiasco. It's not that. It's not that. I was annoyed when he got picked for the last Lions tour. I don't rate his style of play. I don't like the way he plays the game. When he started coaching Wales,
the way he sees the game.
The way he sees the game. But what he's done to Wales as well. Like, a lot of Welsh fans will defend him, and I'd be online and on forums and stuff talking about rugby, and you have these debates, and Wales people defending the results they had, because he managed to get results in the Six Nations when England and Ireland were at sea and France were receding as well, so they were just flying to the top of a pretty limited bunch, and then wondering why they could never win against New Zealand, South Africa or Australia. And it's because they're not so limited, the style of play. And
it was an aggressive blitz defence coupled with an abrasive
attack that
style.
The only way you score tries is if you run over a guy and then you're in space and you score. And like, what is that? Running at jerseys instead of gaps? It doesn't agree with me at all. And like, especially given Wales's great tradition of running rugby and all the exciting Wales teams that they've had them before. And this one has just plateaued, and all through the Warren years, whenever you play against Wales, it's like, well, it's Wales. We know what we're going to get. We know that if we do X, Y, and Z, we win the game. If we just front up, make the first up tackles, kick the ball a bit, maul them,
if you don't move the ball quick enough, and if you don't, if you're not accurate in your kicking, you can be caught by that blitz defence and beaten. And they're a tough team to beat for a Northern Hemisphere side that's a little bit sloppier than,
and a bit more hesitant to move it out to the wide channel. Like, you see when they lose to the likes of New Zealand and they get hammered, New Zealand always like stand way deep and just run the ball, and they don't mind spinning it back 10, 20 yards behind the game line if it means there's space in the wide channels.
They'll just attack them in the short channels if they go out wide, and then as soon as the space is there, Wales get sloppy because they're not used to teams moving the ball quickly against them, and as soon as the space is there, the try is scored, and very often that happens at about 50 minutes in that game, and then New Zealand cruise.
And I've always thought with the likes of Cuthbert is one classic example of the embodiment of all things Warren ball. Not the most skillful player, not a great reader of the game, but a big physical unit.
That fast guy,
athletic guy, and can be trouble because he's a big handful, but can also be made look very silly.
The reality is, personally, I don't really care about the Lions. I don't feel any attachment to it, regardless of who's coaching.
We're a bit too young for that.
I guess if you want to pick a coach to go to New Zealand and win, he's the last coach you'd pick. You've got to pick someone smart, someone who's going to outthink New Zealand in a way that I've never seen Warren do, and I think he's just gonna pick the best players and get into these mind games with New Zealand, and it's gonna be.
Well, the forecast. Well, do you want to go out with those predictions?
Well, I think they'll lose
3 test losses against New
and
Zealand.
I think they'll lose to the Maoris.
And I think they'll lose to the Maoris. And I think they'll lose to one of either the Hurricanes or the Chiefs, or one of these teams are going to do them, because any New Zealand team you play, including all the clubs there, are a tough game. I'm not giving that to any Lions team.
I'd give it to any international team.
And the last Lions tour, which is so inflated as an achievement, I find, because.
But they lost
in similar fact, what we were talking about South Africa last year, Australia were having a very similar year that year. They were all at sea. They were hopeless. It was the worst team, the worst the Lions have ever had to face, and they still nearly lost.
That second test was one of the most appalling test matches you're ever likely to see.
I know.
But the main issue that I have with the Lions is it feeds into this parochial, small mindset of these nations. We should be able to go to New Zealand and win a test series. Ireland, Wales, England. That's what you should be thinking. It feeds into this mindset. If we all pool together, we can challenge the mighty All Blacks. You know, we want to be the best on our own. We want to build toward a World Cup success, and it only gets in the way from an Ireland rugby perspective.
Certainly from an Ireland perspective. It's a bit selfish, maybe, a bit like no sense tradition, but
it is.
Our track record in World Cups is an embarrassment.
Yeah,
and it needs to be remedied. We need a semi-final. We need a final.
I'm sure if Keith Wood or Willie John were in the room, they'd be either battering us or giving us a long lecture
about the importance and significance of it. And I agree to an extent. I think it's had a great part in rugby history. I think it's a really wonderful chapter in it. And I even think they won in South Africa many years ago. The one that we lost. No, not many years ago. 2009.
Not that many years ago.
The one in South Africa recently was a great kind of Lions festival.
A lot of Irish players, but
a lot of Irish players, but just even the coaching staff and stuff. That there was a very much an emphasis on that nostalgia buzz of the Lions and all the teams grouping together, and everyone seemed to have a good time. And so there were loads of good promos cut from it. The Warren Ball fiasco that happened in the last one seemed to divide the nations more than unite them as well.
I'm going to do a BuzzFeed and just report on this unsubstantiated rumor that I heard. But I heard that that during the last Lions tour, it came out that Warren Gatland was vigorously taking notes on Andy Farrell's defensive style and all of this, and used it essentially to sort of undermine England in the World Cup. It's a little out there, but I wouldn't put it past them. And
I don't rate him as a man of.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I just think in this era where we want to be, England and Ireland certainly, and I think Wales want to be among the elite teams of the world.
Want to cement our claim as such. Like England have always considered themselves one, which is something that it's annoying when you're looking from the outside looking in, but it also serves them well. They produce better performances than the sum of their parts a lot of the time because of that self-belief. Where we find we're the opposite internationally. We find a bit of small mind, and if we get the favourites tag, we get thrown off. We drop balls. Suddenly we're the favourites. We're going to drop all the balls and play really terribly. But if we're backs to the wall and we're going the underdogs, they're not giving us a chance. We go out and have that ferocious
England
monster
would be
stuff.
the opposite. They ride the momentum wave up or down.
Yeah. Whereas we get capsized by it.
Yeah, but regardless, I think that the Lions does more harm than good in the modern game, and I'm sure if anybody watches this that I'll get a lot of hate for it. Sorry, just my opinion.